Emmett, how are you, sir?
A good look at that shirt. Man, oh man.
Brings back some
Awesome.
things for you?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, thanks so much for taking the time to be with me. I appreciate you to hanging with me.
It's my pleasure, Scott.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let me introduce you. Not like you need one, that's for sure. I am here today with Mr. Rik Emmett, the guitarist, of course, and vocalist for Triumph, legendary Triumph, 15 million records sold, honors all over the place, awards, accolades. Rick has also recorded numerous solo records, band projects over the years. Now, Rick is an author of, we're going to call it an autobiographical book of poetry called Reinvention, and that comes out September 14th. And again, thanks, Rick, for hanging.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure.
I call it autobiographical. I'm looking through this and I really feel like I have a piece of Rik Emmett with me. It's deep, and there's a very serious side to this, and there's a whimsical side as well. Of course, it's Rik Emmett's. So, is that fair to call it autobiographical?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And therapeutic and terrifying and frightening because you are revealing things and being personal in a way that, for me, the guitar was always kind of like a safety blanket, a security thing, and even in a way, when you can dress yourself in songs and in music, that's like being able to wear a bit of a mask.
Mhm.
But poetry was it was an unmasking, but I felt it was good. It was healthy, and certainly the autobiographical sense of it, like just being able to say, okay, I'm going to try and find a way to express these thoughts and these feelings that I have that will give people insight into, what it was like to have lived my life and to be me and to go through those things. But it also, the book itself subdivided into categories or sort of sections, if you will.
Mhm.
And it also allowed me to sort of pontificate and, load up my guns and fire off soapbox sermonettes was one of the sections, and
Yep.
one about politics. And yeah, I didn't leave too much back on the table. I got a lot into that book for 100 and some odd pages. It's full of a lot of stuff.
It really is. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, I'm learning all kinds of things from Rick, things that I don't ever address, and that's, politics and religion, things like that. Those are a no-go usually. And I'm getting that from you, from the book, which is really a great thing, because that's things that nobody really loves to discuss in a public forum. Yeah, most people anyway. Especially a musician, an artist like yourself. Music is what you do. So getting those other pieces is really a great it's a great thing to have that and know more about you, because I talked to Gil probably 2 months ago now, and I said to him, I said, you guys are mom and dad. We don't want to see mom and dad fight, and and we want to know about our heroes, you guys did so much for so many people. This gives an insight to you as a person, and then it's really an important book, I think, really.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like when you make music, it's a certain way of being articulate, but it's one it's nonverbal in many ways. Obviously, since I'm a singer and a lyricist, I did have that, but as you were saying about Triumph and being mom and dad, like there's this thing of when you have a band, you're projecting an image, and it's something that for us, the three guys sort of come together, and so there's an integrated front sort of that becomes the image of this band that you project. And of course, in Triumph's case, my God, it was larger than life. There was,
Oh, yeah.
flash pots, flamethrowers, and all the rest of it. So the idea of being able to be articulate, but just to be personal and to only, be using words and phrases, which is not to say that it's not musical. Poetry it's a very musical kind of thing because it's about rhythm and it's about finding a kind of a phrasing that makes the words on the page come alive a little bit. So I mean, it was one of the things that drew me to it and why I love it. And it's a kind of a nice thing now to be able to say, no, I'm a published poet and I may take another crack at it. Like I did enjoy the process very much as I enjoy music. So, yeah, there is all that, Now, meanwhile, we got the documentary coming out and people are going to get a chance to sort of see the band. This is another way to be able to get it. It's not just words, here's these guys that are movie makers, and yeah, that sort of opens up a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, there's so much that you guys have working for you. You just had the Allied Forces box set,
Yeah.
And the Canadian Record Store Day thing. You have the film coming out, you have the book, there's the tribute record as well.
Yeah, that's coming. Yeah,
it is all coming, and of course, what's going to be coming with all of these things. There's going to be coming that fan thing of you're going to have to play now. You're going to have to come together. You're getting that. It's coming.
Well, I know we're going to get. Yeah, I mean, I know there's going to be pressure for that. I honestly think though that it's probably. I mean, a part of it is just age. Like Mike and Gil are a little older than I am, and they don't necessarily keep their hand in the sense of chops and playing and stuff.
Right.
And the documentary is going to reveal this thing of the band actually getting together and playing this thing for fans, which was an unbelievable thing. But poor Gil, he had to try to get himself in shape for like 6 weeks just to play 3 songs. And so it's a tough haul. It's not the same thing when you're 60s getting into your 70s than it was when you were younger. And the other thing too is Triumph, the material itself. It's not like you're asking a band to go out and maybe play Fleetwood Mac songs or Eagles tunes, which not to say those aren't great songs, great musicians making great music, but it's not as demanding as when you're in a rock band that's going to have to, like kick ass for 90 minutes. Like that's a big ask.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And as a fan, I don't know about other fans, but I can speak for myself. I love what you've given us. And I am completely happy. It's changed my life and the way I listen to music. So if I get more, it would be great. But but I am.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. Yeah,
for sure. In this book, you have a lot of different emotions and it goes in a lot of different directions. When were these pieces written? Are they all recent, or did you go into the vault? Have you been writing these over the years?
Some, but most of it was recent. Like, I had a few things. There's a poem in there that was a lyric that I wrote as an exercise in a songwriting workshop that I taught back in, like, I think it was maybe 2007, literally that long ago.
Can I guess what that is?
That one was called Dear Dog. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Guess.
Okay. No, that wasn't my guess. World of Song.
Yeah. That was recent.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's two poems that were definitely lyrics. They weren't really poems. They were telling me, no, this is a lyric. And the ideas you're getting here, so come on, Rik, kick your own ass here and write some music. So for the audio book, I recorded World of Song and Born to Pay were 2 lyrics that I turned into songs. And so they're available and they're on the audio book. And I've also shot videos for them. So Born to Pay just came out World of Song is coming out next week, and just sat in the back garden with an acoustic guitar and sang the tune. And by the way, I had a full beard when I did it, so it wasn't quite as good as yours, but it wasn't bad. It was pretty good. My kids were saying, "You look like Papa Smurf." So anyhow, yeah. So 2007 was maybe the oldest, and then there were a few things from then, leading up. But essentially, when I got the whole thing, COVID, everybody shut down, and so now I'm sitting in my room and going, okay, what am I going to do with myself? And I'd retired from the road, and so I go, okay, well, maybe I'm going to start writing some poetry, and so that kind of snowballed, and so most of the stuff was new and fresh, and even if I had old notebooks that I went back into and pulled some things from, I did a lot of rewriting and fixing and editing, but there were little things. There was something I'd found in my, like I used to travel with spiral notebook, and I would make notes all the time. I'm a writer, so I write. I keep notes, and so there would be things. There was a piece that was from I was playing in Cincinnati at the garage, and they put you up in a nice bed and breakfast. So one morning I was sitting in the bed and breakfast and wrote a poem, and that it's the last one in the book. It was because it was about being Canadian. Here I was, in Cincinnati on a kind of a cold, it was, I think it was maybe December, even January or somewhere around there. Anyways, it wasn't snowy, but it was cold and wet. And I was thinking about Canada. Sorry?
Like home.
Yeah. Anyhow, but it was just the whole thing too of like, see here, I got this. There's this whole thing of being somebody that was from Canada that then ended up having so much touring and the band's success was really based on even more in the States than in Canada. Like in Canada, we were big, but when you reach the sort of the heights, you go across the country, you play, anywhere from a dozen to 15 dates, and you're done. That you've covered the country, and now where do you go? And for us, it was always back into the States and touring there. So I had so much that I was that I owed to Americans and to the fans that we had there, and just to that country in general. So, but you never lose your sense of otherness, like the fact that, you're sort of an outsider, that you come, so you're a little bit strange, not too strange, but strange enough.
Was it easier? Is it easier to write poetry for you or write a song? Or are they, how are they different for you?
Well, songs would come at me in many different ways. Sometimes songs would start from a little bit of a lyric idea or a phrasing idea, or, I used to have a little, pocket cassette recorder, but of course now everybody's got a phone, and I would just keep, accumulating ideas, and sometimes the idea leads to a song idea or a guitar piece idea, or, but poetry was more like I was given a license almost. There were two books that I read. One was by Adam Saul, and it was called How a Poem Moves. Mm-hmm. And that really kind of, I've since, since the book came out, I signed one to him, and I wrote on the front page, you're like the guy at the motor vehicles department that just gave me a license, so thanks a lot. But if we're going to blame anybody, I'm going to blame you. So Adam Saul, he was one guy. And Stephanie Burt, who teaches, I think, at Yale or Harvard or one of the, somewhere in the Ivy League. But that was a very textbooky kind of thing called The Poem Is You. And that that also gave me a kind of a sense of, okay, I'm going to do this. And then once I had the license, I found that writing poetry was actually, it wasn't easier, but it was a little bit more fun. It was a little bit more, and when I say fun, sometimes you're writing about dark things and things that make you angry and stuff, but you're not as like, Songwriting is a very architectural kind of thing. You know, once you've come up with one good solid chunk, it's a verse or a chorus. Well, now you're going to have to write other chunks that match the structure of that. The rhyme scheme's got to be the same, the form's got the phrasing, all of that. When you're writing a poem, you've got a little bit more license, you know. And the other thing is a poem can maybe there's a poem in the book that's maybe 6 lines long or something, and it was something that my 3-year-old daughter said to my wife, you know, like,
Love it.
yeah,
Do heels make noise? I
the
was going
heels
to
make
ask
noise.
you. That's
Yeah,
one of my favorite things in the book.
yeah,
Uh,
and so it's a great poet. I like as a piece of poetry. It's a cool little idea. But it's small and it sits there on the page with a lot of white space around it. But I go, yeah, but it works. You know, and
totally.
that's the thing about poetry that's different than songs. A song is going to be 3.5 minutes, or longer, and okay, maybe you can make it 2.5. Like I think Born to Pay and World of Song are shorter. They're just little folk songs.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, poetry doesn't have as many rules in its rule book, which is not to say that poetry doesn't have rules. It can. You could be writing a Shakespearean sonnet, or you could be writing a haiku, or et cetera, et cetera. There's things that have structural form rules,
Mhm.
but I didn't pay attention to much of
And it works, let me tell you. It's really cool, and I think a lot of it doesn't have to be literal. You don't It can be somewhat cryptic,
Oh
which
yeah,
is a fun read. And I think a lot of it is here. You're saying something, and I know what you're saying, but it's not perfectly clear. It's cryptic and it's artistic and it's rhythmic in a poetry nature. And that is fun. That is a really fun thing. And Do Heels Make Noise is a homophonic genius. When I read it, it went over my head. And then I noticed the spelling of heels. And then I just thought it was the most adorable thing ever.
indeed.
Just the innocence of that thought process of a 3-year-old. And
Yeah,
then, I was going to ask you about that. Is that true? Did you hear a 3-year-old say that?
yeah.
And it's your
My
daughter.
daughter actually said it to my wife, and had it in a diary. And then one time was reading the diary back to me and said, "Hey, remember this?" Ashley came to the kitchen and blah blah blah, blah and was staring and saying, "Hey, do heels make noise?" And I think Jeanette was maybe washing dishes or cooking or something and wasn't looking at her. She must have been looking at a scab on her arm or something.
Right.
Do heels make noise? And Jeanette was going, "Oh, sure, honey. Yeah, yeah. When you walk, your shoes." And she's going, "No, no, no. Do heels make noise?" And she goes, "Yes, yes. You like when you walk, your heels can." She goes, "No, do heels make noise?" And she turns and she sees, oh, she's looking at a scab on her arm. Because yes.
It's
Anyhow,
just awesome. It's
yeah.
just awesome. It was the centerpiece of the book for me. It really
Oh
was.
yeah. Oh,
It
that's
just
great.
it touched me because of it's that whimsical side. It's that fun and that innocence. And like you say, I mean, some of this poetry can be dark. And I wanted to ask you about that. A
Sure.
lot of it is somewhat dark, or it deals with things that make you angry. Is it harder to write? What's one's harder to write? Something really positive. Well, I think of Triumph music as on the lighter side, more positive side. Fight the good fight, things like that. Magic power. They're uplifting and powerful in a positive way. I can't recall too many negative Triumph songs that you write the positive side when you write songs, for the most part. In this book, it's a little bit different, of poetry. Is it harder to write a darker poem than it is a lighter poem for you?
Well, I think you've pointed up something that's a pretty interesting dynamic, and because you're a Triumph fan and from way back, you would pick up on stuff in this sense. that perhaps, say a literary critic that only reads poetry they would never have the same understanding. And so, first of all, let me deal with what's right in front of me. You're sitting there wearing a Triumph t-shirt. The band was called Triumph. It wasn't called Defeat.
Right.
It wasn't called Darkness.
Yep.
It's not like there haven't been bands that's what they did decide. No, this is what we're going to be about. We're angry and we're gonna voice adolescent rage and we're gonna rage against the machine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but that's not what we were. And now I don't think when the guys picked the name, Mike and Gil, they picked the name before I got in it, before I joined the band. But once I was in and that was the name of the band, it took me a while, but I figured out, wait a sec, like when I wrote Hold on the Just a Game album,
Yep.
I felt like I think I've touched the mother lode here. I think this is really where what the band is connecting to what the band does and what the fans can perceive, because that's what you guys called it, so it needs to deliver that. Okay, so now that's the framework that you've got, and I talked to earlier about the integration in what a band's image. So that does become a kind of a shoebox after a while, or pick your metaphor, a pigeonhole. You're tied to that, and it's hard to go against it, because if you do, then maybe your fans are going to go, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to be this for me. That's not what I go to you for. I need you for this. Give me what I need. And so expectations enter into this. Okay, so now to the other part of your question, which was really an excellent question, by the way, because it's opened up a lot of stuff that I like to talk about. So
Nice.
you're writing poetry, and there is this thing about how much courage are you going to have, because I think that's one of the things about poetry, is that it allows you to try and be really brave and say things that you might not say in conversation, things that you maybe not, you wouldn't say it in a song, but you want to say it, and you want to find words for it. And as you alluded to earlier, you can create elliptical kinds of ways to get around this. You can dress it up in a way that if somebody came to you and said, "Is this what you meant?" You could go, "Well, a little bit, but maybe not all of that." Or, "Oh, geez, no," because the thing about poetry, which it shares with music, is that, and when I say music, I mean instrumental kind of music. You can allow a listener, a reader, to come in and make their own determinations about what it is that they're reading or what they're hearing, because you're not dictating. It's not prose that's being definitive. You're not writing an essay to try and get a grade.
Right.
You're trying to create art. And the art of it is sometimes that elliptical nature that you talked about, that illusory, metaphorical kind of, let's go back to Heels Make Noise. Just coming up with that little phrase with, that homophonic thing that you talked about. The words are doing something where, you can take it as this very innocent, childish thing, but you could also take it to mean, well, what if we're severely wounded? If you're really hurt, if you've been damaged inside, the process of healing, are you going to make noise? And so there's a depth to poetry that the words allow that you can never get from other forms, and that's not to say that a novelist can't be poetic. They can. Their writing can be very poetic. Even like a guy like Martin Luther King or Bobby Kennedy, they can make speeches, and the speeches can have a poetic nature to them that's moving and dynamic, But when the words are on the page, they can do something that's a little bit different than songs, that challenged me in a slightly different way. And, you know, as we sit here talking, you know, in the last little while, I got my notebook here and I keep writing shit, you know, and my second book of poetry, if and when it ever makes its way to the public, I'm sure it's probably going to be a little bit darker. And this is the final part to answer your question. The reason why is because I'm getting a little braver, a little more courageous about what I'm going to try to say and do. I'm moving a little further away from the guy. I'm going to move closer to your Triumph logo. I'm moving a little further away from being the guy that wrote, you know, hold on to your dreams and fight the good fight and the magic power of the music and, you know, never surrender. Right. Like that was a guy, you know, 35, 40 years ago. And now I'm 68 years old. And so the courage that I find now, the ambition that I find now, they're different things. And this is the final part of the you know, the answer to your question. We don't live in happy times, Scott. We've lived through a pandemic. We're living through a time where, I mean, in Canada here the other day, people were chucking gravel at our prime minister on a campaign stop. You know, like that's the Canadian version of storming the Capitol. Yeah. Nevertheless, it's, you know, that's like, how can people not see how brutally stupid they're being when stuff like that happens? And yet they're so angry that they can't see it. They believe that they're being righteous. And that's a terrible place in time to be. Like we're not in a good, healthy place right now, culturally, psychologically, you know. So I don't think the poetry of this time should necessarily reflect sunshine and flowers. That's not where our world is at. You know, our world is sick. You know, we have problems. The planet itself is going, you know what? Sorry. It's like, I'm going to visit some wrath and destruction upon you. You know, the weather is going to be very, very bad for you people from time to time now, and things are going to start happening that you're reaping what you've sown. You know, so there's this kind of very biblical thing that's going on now. Yeah. So I think my poetry is probably going to be picking up on some of that.
And that's, you know, fair. For sure. It is. I would imagine it's very difficult to write something sunshine and rainbows right now. Like you say, it is. It's tough walking out your front door these days. That is for sure. You know, I try to think of the human race as, you know, civilized, but I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
One of my poems, I'm talking about trying to find the balance point as the pendulum swings from left to right, and from the part of me that is the part where I go, I want to be gracious. I want to have virtue. I want to try and offer people something positive and good. And then, you know, people storm the Capitol and my pendulum swings over and I'm going, oh my God, I'm turning into a misanthrope. Like, I hate these stupid people. Yeah. You know, and you go, well, that's not good. You know, it's not good. Like, I'm not going to solve the problem with hate, you know, and neither are they. You know, that's so, you know, that's a tough thing that we all have to deal with. But, you know, the pendulum swings and somewhere at the midpoint, there is balance. There can be balance.
Yep. Yeah. It'd be great to find it. That's for sure. Yeah. I have to go back. When you started, you mentioned "Hold On," and that started as a poem. You wrote in high school, I believe, correct?
Yeah. Of course, the poet in me that back then was a poet that was very much like, you know, roses are red, violets are blue. Or there once was a girl from Nantucket. You know, like some poetry.
Hold On's pretty great. You know.
Hey, the last group of songs, I actually wrote a thing called the Limerick song, and every verse is a limerick. So it's like, as I'm getting older, I'm deciding, okay, I don't want to leave any stones unturned here. I'm gonna lift up every rock and see what I can come up with. So yeah, no, but yeah, it's true. Hold On was a poem, a little poem that I wrote, and so I guess I always had it in me. It was always a part of who I was. Now I've just decided, okay, so now that I'm a senior citizen, now I'm going to start seeing if I can't put out books.
I'm enjoying it. I gotta tell you, you have a poem in the book called "Ticket to Ride." Uh, it's very deep. Talks about declining health with your father, um, how that's passed along to all of us as we age. But a passage at the end of the poem says, "My God is the word in the music, in the arts. So I will pray with my work for him, for me, for us." Um, Praying with your work. At that point in time, when you wrote that, um, did you pray with your work? Is there a song that was written at the same time as that poem?
Um, there are always songs being written, by me. Uh, there's always poems being written by me. There's always emails being written every day by me. Like, I'm a writer. That's what I do, and I'm a reader. I love to read, and part of that is prayer, I think, for me, because the work, the writing part of the work doesn't go very well unless there's the reading part of the work. Like,
Yep. Hey.
you have to do your research, and you have to I read the paper every morning, and I feel it's sort of it's part of my life, it's part of my work, but it's part of an avocation, which is to say, it's not just work, which is vocation, but it's avocation. It's what's calling to me and saying, this is what you need to be doing in this life. Now, that poem in particular, my dad has since passed away, and I've got a poem in the book that's Ticket to Ride PS. So the story goes on. The poem, you know, a poem might end, but there's always going to be another one. And if I'm not writing it, my kids maybe are going to be writing it, and if they're not writing it, then my grandkids are going to be writing it. Like um, the poem we mentioned earlier, "Heels Make Noise," that was my daughter Ashley. She's just recently given us her second kid, our fourth grandchild, and I've held that baby in my arms. And her 3-year-old boy is almost at that stage where he's going to be standing in a kitchen and saying to his mother, "Do heels make noise?" And she's going, "What are you talking about?" Like, that's what happens, and that's life. And I think poetry has to have life in it. That's the juice of it. So that, even though that poem was sad, and tough, I always think still I have a job to do, which is to try and find something that's the juice of life to put in there, even if what you're doing is, lowering all the shades and covering all the mirrors, and that we're in mourning. Like, that's part of life too. But how do you come out of mourning and into back towards the light and celebration and all of that?
Yeah, and I so appreciate that kind of thing, because I know it's got to be difficult, and it's not something that is maybe enjoyable to do, like something cute and nice and fuzzy. But it's like I said at the beginning, we're getting Rik Emmett here. We're getting more than Triumph songs, which was plenty for me at the beginning. But like I say, your mom and dad, we want to know about you, and we want to know how you feel, and we care. And that is one of those things that really makes it great for the fan, because we do get to know you. We do get to know how you feel, and we get to care about you, and it's really cool.
That's a beautiful thing for me to get to hear, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to add this just because I've been doing a lot of interviews lately, and one of the things, even my sister-in-law, my wife, when they're reading the book, a lot of people, the editor that signed me to the publishing deal, he says, my favorite one is "Remembering Russell," the one about your brother. Like, and they're big ones right at the heart of the book. And he said, that's the thing that made me want to give you a book deal, because I felt a poem like that needs to be read. It makes people cry, that poem. But sometimes good art, when it really makes you hurt, it allows you to connect with other people, So sometimes that's the emotion. It's not happiness. It's sadness. It's mourning. It's grief. It's the fact that we're trapped in these bodies that are only going to last a certain amount of time, and then we're going to be gone. So what are we leaving behind? So sometimes the writing of a poem is almost like every poem is a bit of a eulogy for the poet, in a way.
Yeah, and I don't think we get to know about ourselves without listening to somebody else's experience. Do they feel the same way I do? When somebody passes, when somebody's sick, when good things happen, is it me that's feeling a certain way? We always have those questions about, our humanity. So this is a very revealing thing that touches people, because we're people. We're all people.
Yes. And we're also alone, but at the same time, what we crave is the connection, but we're still alone, like there's a poem in the book where I talk about being, a husband, a father, a brother, a son, all of those things, all of those connections. I'm still alone. I still have my moments where I realize, but as much as I want to feel all those connections, I can stand in front of, 100,000 people and play a song, and you can get that moment of connection. But I just wrote a thing in my notes for one of my upcoming poems, and I'm talking about how, because I have to do a memoir, that's part of my publishing deal. So I've been, doing some writing and making notes for the memoir, which is not to say that the poems aren't also autobiographical, and that probably should have stood as my memoir. But no, I'm going to have to do it, But I was talking about how you can have that moment on stage, and it's like 90 minutes of a day, and it's an incredible 90 minutes, and the connection you make is so powerful. But then there's like 22 and a half hours, and now what? And that 22 and a half hours, it's all feeder for the 90 minutes. Everything that you do in those 22 and a half hours has to be, to service that 90-minute thing. And it robs you of your life after a while. Yeah. And when I say life, I mean, I missed birthdays of kids. I missed first bike rides. I missed first haircuts, things that most people just normally get.
Right.
I was in a hotel in San Diego or, whatever. Like,
bed and breakfast in Cleveland.
I missed that stuff, So.
Yeah. And that's you start to think about that as you get older too.
Yeah. But see, so the writing of the memoir, people are going to get the memoir. Is it going to be warm and happy and fuzzy? I think they're going to get real Rik Emmett, so they're going to get some truth that might hurt, or that they might go, ooh, shit. I didn't realize that he was like that. I didn't realize Rik was that kind of guy. But, I'm not afraid anymore to sort of speak truth. Like, what am I saving it for?
please do. The real fan is going to want that truth, and like I say, you are special to every fan, and we want you. We want to know you, and it'll be something. I mean, these poems alone, like you said, can stand as an autobiography, and it is pleasing to read. It is a great read. To get an autobiography in a literal sense is really going to be that extra special cherry on top. It's pretty spectacular to hear.
Well, I was doing an interview the other day, talking about for the documentary stuff, and the premiere is happening on Friday and all that. And I was saying how then the guy was saying, so we're going to get, a true insight. And I go, well, let me make sure that you understand this. You're going to get a documentary made by Banger Films, and that's essentially Sam Dunn and Mark Ricciardelli. And those two guys they know what they're doing. They've done plenty of these,
Mhm.
Rush and Iron Maiden and ZZ Top and Alice Cooper and you name them. But they're going to tell a story. They know that that's what they, as a filmmaker, that's what they need to do. You need to sort of tie everything to a story. So the story of Triumph is going to be the story that they decide to tell. And it's going to be based on whatever footage they had available and whatever they decide are the hooks. And they go, oh, Rik quit the band at its height, and the band disappeared overnight when it was, and I go, well, that's not what it felt like to me,
Right.
like that's not my story. And when my memoir comes out, there will be an opportunity for me to tell more of my story as opposed to the one that's the Triumph story that Banger Films is telling you, in a rockumentary, which is not to say that it's not great. It is great, but
Mhm.
it's their story,
Yeah.
and my story isn't Gil Moore's story, and my story isn't Mike Levine's story, although there was a story that was the three of us. I should do three, you know. Uh,
Sure.
yeah, there's always that,
Mhm.
there's always the fact that if we write a song right now, it's a song that we wrote right now, and that song is not going to be the same thing 20 years from now, especially if it becomes a hit, and then it belongs to people that have heard it and it's become the soundtrack of their life. It changes.
Mhm.
So um, everything that we do, I think, is subject to time. And of course, time is one of the.
I was, I got it right here. I was going to ask you things about that. I found the time chapter especially captivating, um, especially when you talk about past, present, and future, and being in those realms. Um, would you say that you're a person? I can kind of feel this from reading the book. Are you a person that looks back and relishes, those great times, Maple Leaf Gardens and the US Festival and all those great things that you've done in the past, all those great songs? Or are you a person that lives in the today, doesn't care to look back too much, doesn't care to plan ahead too much? Or are you a person that is planning ahead, and always thinking about tomorrow and what you're going to do tomorrow? Who is Rik Emmett? I have my guess.
Well, you just gave me A, B, and C. Can I have a D that's all of the above? Because I'm going to pick D, all of the above. Like, uh, do I have my leanings? Absolutely. And is my leaning towards today, a today that's going to maybe make for a good tomorrow? That's the one I'm going to pick. You know,
Right.
and I've had some therapy from some very wonderful, helpful people, because I had to deal with the fact that you know who I was and what I'd done was creating too much baggage, to be dragging around, um, and that I wasn't enough in the present to be a good husband to my wife. Like that was becoming an issue. I was too much inside my own head, too much inside my own career. So that whole past, present, future thing, and the kind of Zen uh, vitality of that, which is to say, there is only the now. Yes, there was a past, and yes, we can honor the past, and we certainly, like Santayana, we don't want to forget it, because and then we might be doomed to repeat it. So that's the Santayana thing. But if you go to the future is the place where people are going, ooh, what if this happens? Uh-oh. What that whole land of what if, you
Right.
know, like you can't live there either. You can't be a mom that says to her kid, no, you can't go outside to play because something bad might happen.
Right.
No, that's no good.
Right.
The kids got to go outside to play. The kids got to get dirty. The kids got to build up a good immune system by eating dirt. you know, like, like there's got to be a certain amount of reality that enters into every part of that timeline so that it's a healthy one, you know.
Yeah.
And really the now is the healthiest place to be. So I'm going to pick it from your question, but I'm going to be leaning towards the future because I know that my nows are always much better if I've planned well. And a
Yeah.
good example is my son's getting married uh, um, the 18th in Niagara Falls, and I'm
Awesome.
going to have to sing a song at the wedding. And buddy, I am going to rehearse like crazy to sing that song because I'm not going to get up and wing it in the moment because that would make it bullshit. You know? And I'm not going to be bullshit. I'm going to be good. When I sing
Yeah.
that song, I guarantee you I'm going to nail it, you know.
What are you singing?
Uh, You're My Best Friend by Queen.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
except of course I'm not doing it like their version. I'm doing it with a like a kind of a jazz guitar and kind of swung a little bit and a little bit down tempo. So yeah. Ooh,
That is,
you make me live.
yeah.
Whenever this world is cruel to me, I got you. Yeah, it's gonna have a
Yeah.
little bit of that.
Just awesome. Just awesome. Wow. Too cool. Rick, I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have a few more minutes?
I can give you a few more minutes, but
Okay.
then I gotta go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. And I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. Just
Yeah.
figure out a way to wrap it up good.
Yep.
We don't have to rush, but you know.
Yep. Um, Go Leafs go. I have to address that. That's such a proud moment for you. I read it and it just radiates off the page. That 21 jersey. I know you got it somewhere.
Actually, my son has it in his closet, but yes.
Okay. I know it's somewhere. Is that the proudest moment in your career? In all of this Triumph stuff, you had, the US Festival, I always think of.
Yeah,
Just so many great moments.
I know.
Um,
No, I would say the proudest moment was we got inaugurated into Canada's Walk of Fame. They have a big to do, you know. It's like a
mhm.
fancy sit down dinner, and you literally I got to have my whole family with their significant others sitting there, and the other guys are there with their families and significant others, and we get to walk up and you get this thing and they take your picture and that was a pretty big deal. That was a pretty cool thing. And you know, Gil's he still owns and runs the Metalworks studio, and
Mhm.
there's a wall now in Studio One where the giant circle that was on the floor. So when you walked up, they had these giant circles that were each inductee, and so it was like Triumph, you know, the Walk of Fame, and
Wow.
so he's got this giant sparkle, you know, circle up on the wall in Studio One, and you know, incredible. Like I think those kinds of moments are the ones that they encapsulate.
Mhm.
You know, the first gig at Maple Leaf Gardens and the first time I ever stood on stage in Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, 17,000 people lit their Bics, and you just go, "Oh my God!" You know, like you're just having a moment, you know, where you know the hair on your arms and legs is just all standing straight out. You're going, "Oh my God, I got the chills," you know.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
So
that Walk of Fame, people recognize all of those things. They know that you've done this, and this, and they're saying that we appreciate that, and that's a great thing.
and then I
So
get to come off stage and I get to go. They had this really cool thing that was for the people that were attending, which was a photo booth out on out you know in the lobby sort of area where they had a bunch of attractions and things you could do and stuff. But they had this photo booth, which was a glass wall that made it look like you were on a magazine that was Canada's Walk of Fame. And so my whole family, we all crowded into this booth together, and we're all like posing. And the guy would say, "Okay, look cocky. Okay, look like you're celebrating. Okay, you know, look like you're serious, you know." So he walked us through these things. We took all these pictures, and when I got those pictures, I went, "This was the best moment of that night. To have my whole family together and to be doing this thing,
that's
that was the best."
That is awesome. That is awesome. If you could go back to 75 and whisper something into Rik Emmett's ear, what would it be?
Wow. Um, I would tell him, when you're getting cocky, don't be so cocky. But when you're feeling humble and shy, you don't have to be that either. You know, try to find a better balance point through all of this. I would definitely tell myself, you know, uh, don't miss those moments with your kids. There's regrets that I have for sure.
Yeah.
So I would try to figure out how to avoid those. But the thing about life, Scott, is you can't go back and whisper in your.
Yep.
You can't do that. That's not how time works.
No,
So
it is
we
not.
we can sit around and we can fantasize about it. But I think the question you're kind of asking me is just what advice would I give to other people about how life goes if you've had, you know, great moments and great success in your life, then you've got a measuring stick that maybe other folks don't. And so, as that person, what advice would you give to people? And I would just say, an apple is never, it's always going to taste as sweet if you let it.
Yeah, that's
Doesn't matter how
perfect.
much money you got, doesn't matter how much success or fame you've had. When the sun comes up, it's the same sun for everybody.
Yep.
So that's what I tell myself, but that's what I tell other people too. Like, there's truth in the wind.
Ah, that's beautiful, man.
Everybody's wind.
Do you feel like you left the campsite better than you found it?
I try to. I can, a good Boy Scout.
Yep.
Yeah, I try. I don't know. And the thing is, it's not for me to decide. Fortunately, I have folks like you, Scott. You help make the decision for everybody else, and that's good for me. I feel pretty secure that there's going to be when I'm dead and gone, people will say, "No, he did. He left the campsite better." So
Yep.
my 4 kids, I know I did. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Rik, I'm gonna let you go and get on with your day. It's such an honor and it was so enjoyable. I hope we can do it again when the memoir comes out. And
Me too. I've enjoyed this. This has been great.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
All right.
I have to talk to someone else now.
Oh man.
I'll see you,
Take care,
Scott.
Rik. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I really enjoyed it. It was
All
great.
right. Thank you.